The theater lights dimmed until only the blue glow of the stage remained. Thousands of faces blurred together, waiting for the next act, whispering with the restless buzz that always filled the America's Got Talent hall. Backstage, two 18-year-old Filipino twins stood shoulder to shoulder, their palms pressed together in silence. Elijah's breath fogged the air as if the room were colder than it really was. His dark hair was neatly combed, his white suit faintly catching the amber edge of the curtain light. Beside him, Ella adjusted the silver pendant that hung around her neck, a gift from their late father, and tried to smile even as her lips trembled. They dreamed of this moment for years, standing before Simon Cowell and the world, about to sing the song their father used to play on his battered guitar back home in Quezon City. The prayer, remember, Elijah whispered. We start together, we finish together. Ella nodded. For Papa. The stagehand raised two fingers. It was time. The twins stepped forward, hearts pounding in the same rhythm, two shadows moving into the light. The audience quieted instantly when the host called, "Please welcome Elijah and Ella from the Philippines." The siblings walked toward the center mark. The floor gleamed like water beneath the spotlights. 4 judges sat before them: Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel. Simon leaned forward with his elbows on the desk, eyes half-narrowed, curiosity wrapped in skepticism. "What are your names?" he asked, voice calm but probing. "I'm Elijah," said the brother. "I'm Ella," added the sister. "We're twins, and we'll be singing the prayer." Simon tilted his head. "That's a very big song." "Yes, sir," Elijah replied softly, "but it's the song that made us believe we could sing." A faint smile crossed Simon's face. "Just enough to signal. All right, let's see." The lights dimmed. A hush spread across the hall like a held breath. The first piano notes rose, delicate, trembling, and the twins closed their eyes. Ella began. Her voice floated like glass, clear and trembling yet impossibly steady. Every note seemed to hang in the air longer than physics allowed. When Elijah entered, his deeper timbre slid beneath hers like a current lifting a leaf. The contrast was perfect: strength and fragility, faith and fear. The room grew still, even the camera operators forgot to move. They sang of guidance, hope, and light in the darkest night. Ella's hand rose unconsciously toward the audience, and Elijah mirrored her gesture. Their harmony locked so precisely that people in the front row felt the vibration through the floor. Sofia covered her heart. Heidi leaned forward, eyes bright. By the second verse, the twins were lost inside the music. Images of their father flashed behind their eyelids, him teaching them to match tones, to listen rather than just sing, to let pain turn into beauty. When they reached the Italian lines, "Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace," the hall erupted into applause before the song had even ended. The twins didn't break, they pushed through the crescendo, voices colliding and soaring until the final note burst like sunlight through stained glass. Then, silence. For 3 eternal seconds no one moved. Then the theater exploded. People rose to their feet, screaming, clapping, crying. A woman in the second row held her phone high, tears rolling down her cheeks. Ella covered her mouth, shaking. Elijah's chest heaved as he turned to her, disbelieving. They had never felt applause like this. Not in school recitals, not in local contests, not anywhere. When the cheering softened, Simon Cowell stood up. The twins froze. Simon rarely stood. "That," he said slowly, "was extraordinary." The crowd roared again. He waited for the noise to settle, then continued. "I've heard this song hundreds of times on this show, but never like that. You weren't trying to impress anyone, you were feeling it. That's the difference." Ella's eyes filled again. Elijah bowed his head slightly, whispering, "Thank you." Howie Mandel leaned toward his mic. "You two just gave us something we'll remember for a long time." Heidi added, "Your harmonies were like one soul in 2 voices." And Sofia nodded through tears. "And so emotional. I could feel your love for each other." Simon studied the twins for another moment. His usual smirk softened into something rare, admiration. "You know what I think," he said finally. Elijah and Ella waited, hearts hammering. "I think your father," Simon said, "would be very proud of you." That broke them. Ella turned toward her brother and cried openly. The audience applauded again, sensing the truth of it. The reason behind the trembling hands, the raw sincerity. Simon looked at his fellow judges, then back at the siblings. "There's nothing left to say except..." He reached out and slammed his palm down on the golden buzzer. A blinding burst of gold confetti erupted above them, raining light across the stage. The crowd erupted into cheers so loud they drowned out the backing music. Elijah threw his hands over his head, laughing and crying all at once, while Ella spun in disbelief, hands to her face, mouth open in a scream of joy. Their mother rushed from backstage, Tiny smiling, sobbing, and the twins fell into her arms. The three of them held each other as the gold paper swirled like a blizzard of sunlight. Simon stood applauding. "You just reminded the world what hope sounds like." The moment froze in cameras and hearts. The twins, their mother, the gold confetti, a portrait of faith, music, and love that would replay on millions of screens before dawn. When the confetti stopped falling and the roar of the audience faded into a soft ocean of cheers, the twins were still clinging to their mother. The lights began to cool, but the stage seemed to hold a warmth of its own. The kind of glow that stays long after the spotlight turns away. They stepped backstage in a daze, hands trembling, ears ringing from applause that still echoed in their bones. A producer rushed toward them with tissues, another with water bottles. "You two just broke the internet," someone said. "Your clip's already everywhere." Elijah laughed through tears. Ella only shook her head, too stunned to answer. Behind them, the judges were still talking, voices caught on the edge of disbelief. Simon leaned toward the camera crew and said, "That's why this show exists. To remind us that there's still magic in the world." They walked down the narrow corridor that smelled of dust and metal. Every crew member they passed clapped or gave them a thumbs up. Their mother whispered, "I told your father that one day you'd sing for the world." The twins looked at each other, neither could speak. That night, in the small hotel room the show provided, they sat on the floor surrounded by unopened takeout boxes. The television replayed their performance again and again, news tickers scrolling beneath. Filipino twins bring AGT crowd to tears. Simon Cowell hits golden buzzer for breathtaking duet. Ella leaned her head on her brother's shoulder. "It doesn't feel real," she said. Elijah smiled faintly. "Maybe it isn't supposed to. Maybe it's just the start." They stayed awake until sunrise, scrolling through thousands of comments. Strangers from every corner of the world writing about how their song made them call their parents, hug their siblings, pray again. One message read, "Your voices healed something I didn't know was broken." The next morning, reporters filled the lobby. Photographers asked them to pose. Journalists asked about their story. The twins answered softly, still shy, still ordinary kids from a place far from these flashing lights. They spoke about growing up in a two-room apartment above their father's repair shop, about nights when the power went out, and they sang by candlelight to keep the dark from feeling lonely. They told the story of their father's illness, the promise they made to him, that no matter what happened, they would keep singing together. The video hit 10 million views in 24 hours, then 50, then 100. People from Manila to Madrid uploaded reaction videos. Choirs covered their version of the prayer. A famous orchestra invited them to perform. Airlines offered free tickets. Local officials called their mother in tears. But amid the frenzy, the twins stayed grounded. Between interviews they would find an empty hallway and hum scales, laughing at each other's missed notes. "Still flat?" Ella would tease. "Still bossy?" Elijah would reply. The noise outside couldn't touch the small world they built around harmony and trust. Weeks passed until the night of the semifinals. The stakes were higher, the lights harsher, but the twins carried something deeper than nerves now, a quiet gratitude. Backstage, Simon found them warming up and said, "No matter what happens tonight, remember that moment you had. You can't rehearse true." They nodded. When the music started, they didn't try to top their first performance, they simply told another piece of their story through song. And again the crowd stood. Again Simon smiled, that rare smile that meant pride more than surprise. When the semifinals ended, they were too overwhelmed to even check the results. They sat in the quiet green room with cups of tea, the TV muted, the world outside roaring with opinions and headlines. Then the door burst open and one of the producers shouted, "You're in the finals." For a moment the twins just stared, uncomprehending. Then Ella screamed and threw her arms around Elijah. Their mother, who had been standing behind the camera monitors, covered her face and cried. The cameras caught everything. The tears, the disbelief, the pure human joy that no director could stage. From that night forward their lives turned into a blur. Rehearsals, interviews, fittings, new versions of the song, lighting tests, sound checks. There were days when their voices cracked and they laughed until they couldn't breathe. There were days when they argued. Small things, tempo, phrasing, nerves. But always, before sleep, one would knock on the other's door and whisper, "Still together?" And the answer was always yes. The day of the final performance arrived with the kind of sunrise that looks like it's been painted just for miracles. Outside the theater, a line of fans wrapped around the block, many holding flags of the Philippines, waving them like prayers made visible. Inside, the stage had been transformed. Columns of light rising like golden cathedrals, a live orchestra waiting silent. The twins stood side by side again, hands linked. Elijah's suit was the same white with gold trim he had worn the night of the Golden Buzzer, but the cut was sharper now. He looked taller, steadier. Ella wore a matching gown that shimmered when she moved, as if made of the same light that poured from the rafters. When the host announced their names, the cheers were deafening. Cameras panned across the crowd, faces wet with tears before a single note had been sung. Simon watched them with an expression the audience had come to recognize, that rare mix of awe and affection. They began softly, almost a whisper. The orchestra followed them like a heartbeat. The song they chose this time wasn't grand or famous, it was a melody they had written themselves, simple, built on the same 4 chords their father used to play. The lyrics spoke of home, of promise, of how even when voices break, the music doesn't stop. Halfway through the song Ella's voice trembled. She took a breath too late, missed a note. For a split second her face fell. Elijah turned his head and met her eyes. He didn't say anything, he just sang the next line a little louder, steadying her pitch with his. She smiled through her tears and came back in perfectly. The crowd erupted in applause even before the song ended. They reached the final note together, holding it until their lungs ached. The orchestra stopped. Silence again, that holy, weightless silence that had followed them once before. Simon was the first to stand, then the others, then the entire hall. It was not just applause now, it was gratitude, shared and loud and endless. When it finally quieted, Simon leaned into his mic. "You've done something very rare," he said. "You've taken a competition and turned it into a love story. Love for your family, for each other, for everyone watching who's ever needed a reason to keep believing." Ella covered her face sobbing. Elijah wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Sofia and Heidi were crying openly. Howie just shook his head, speechless. That night they didn't win the trophy. Another act took first place. But none of it mattered. The clip of their final performance went even farther than the Golden Buzzer one had. The Philippines stayed awake all night watching. Streets filled with people singing their song, car radios playing it in unison. Strangers wrote letters to their mother thanking her for raising them. When they finally returned home, the airport was flooded. People held banners that said, "Welcome home Elijah Illa" and "Proud to be Filipino." Cameras flashed, children ran alongside them, but among all the noise, they were searching for one thing. In the crowd near the exit stood an old man with a guitar case slung across his back, their father's best friend. He handed Elijah the case without a word. Inside, the guitar had been repaired. On the fretboard, carved faintly, were the words, "Keep singing together." That night they stood on their rooftop under the Manila stars, just the two of them. The city lights blinked below like another sky. They sang quietly, without microphones, without cameras, their voices blending into something that didn't need an audience anymore. "Do you think he heard us?" Ella whispered. Elijah looked up, smiling. "I think he never stopped listening." The wind carried their last note into the night. A sound that didn't end but dissolved into the hum of the city, into the hearts of everyone who'd ever watched them sing.